and welcome to the LoGhouls podcast, where we bring your hauntings to life. I'm your host, Alana, and today I'm with special guest, Natalie. And today she'll be sharing her paranormal experiences, her thoughts and beliefs surrounding the supernatural, and why she decided to share her stories today, and more. So don't go away and listen if you dare, for this shall be one spooky story you don't want to miss. Before we dive into today's paranormal experiences, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to those tuning in at home?
My name's Natalie, and I am a registered nurse at a local hospital. I have been working at this hospital for over 30 years in such different positions as a patient care unit, emergency department, clerical type nursing jobs. So I've been in several different nursing fields at the hospital.
Cool. So could you explain where your experiences have occurred?
My experiences that I've had have been in patient care units. My first one was many, many years ago when I was working there as a nursing assistant. I worked a lot of night turn, and it was about 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and I was just doing some rounds, and it was very quiet on the unit, and I'm just walking around, and as I'm walking, I see a shadow go by. So I'm thinking, okay, it's a patient who's up roaming around the hallway, and I go down there, and there is nobody. No elevators open, patients are all sleeping, but there was a definite figure. I couldn't tell you any specific details of the figure, but it was enough to make me stop, turn, look, and walk to make sure that it wasn't a patient roaming the hallway. My second encounter was a much more recent encounter.
Okay.
And the job that I do now is I review records, but I do go onto the patient floors. So I was in what is an old patient room that has been converted into a doctor's dictation room, which is where I sit. And I was the only one in the room, and there is a bathroom in there because, of course, it was an old patient room. So I'm just typing away, and I'm sitting there, and the bathroom doors are very heavy wood doors. And it was almost closed, but not all the way. And again, it's a patient room. There's no gust of air or anything. There was no draft. And I'm typing, and all of a sudden, the bathroom door just decides to shut and latch shut. So I'm just looking around, wondering, okay, who's visiting? Because I know it wasn't me that closed the door, and there's nobody else in here. So I just kept doing my job, and I was like, I'm friendly, and I'm sure the spirit, whoever was there, was friendly because I didn't feel threatened or uncomfortable. There are several stories of other spirits that roam the hospital. There is the story of the lady in the pink pajamas that roams the OR. I don't know specifically where in the OR, but there's been several sightings of the lady in the pink pajamas. I do know a person who has encountered who they call the Whistler, who has been down in the laundry storeroom area. And this woman, she was working in the storeroom, and it was afternoon shift, so it was a light crew. There was only 2 people, and she was in the storeroom, she thought, by herself. And there's several, it's a very big area, the storeroom, and there's a lot of different doors and entrances that lead to other areas in the hospital. So she was in the storeroom, and the door that takes you to what's called central processing, which is where they sterilize the instruments from the operating room. It's a big, heavy door. It closed shut.
Really?
And she's like, Pat, what are you doing over there? Pat was her coworker who was working with her that night. What are you doing back there? You're not supposed to be back there. Well, Pat comes through the other way. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, okay, and she told him what had happened. And there's been people that have heard him whistling. I believe he wears a flannel shirt. I don't know if there's any details with him as well. Now, I have spent many nights, because in my other position that I had at the hospital, I was employee health, and I would be there till midnight sometimes, or come in at 3 in the morning sometimes, when it's flu shot time, to hit all of the units, the shifts, so they can all be vaccinated. And the hospital was a very spooky place at night, and especially when your office is down by the morgue. So my office was down by the morgue, and it's very eerie, very quiet. So I was always very thankful I didn't come in contact with the Whistler, because I think I
Yeah.
might have been a little scared. But
Yeah. So you've never like heard the Whistler at all, or?
I never heard him that I know of. Like, I don't even recall of anybody whistling before in the hospital that I've heard. So no, I did not.
Do you know if he was like a patient there or anything?
I've heard that people think that he was an employee.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but I don't know. I know that there was nobody ever killed at the hospital while working. But maybe he just roams there because that's where he's worked, most of his
Yeah.
life. So, but I've heard people think that it might be an old employee. And the lady in the pink pajamas, I'm assuming, was a patient.
Patient, yeah. So like, do people have any theories as to why like those two like stick around? Or...
The assumption is the lady in the pink pajamas in the OR probably died in the
Yeah.
OR, would be my guess. Maybe she's trying to find her way somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe.
You know.
Maybe we don't know, right?
Yeah. No, I've had to do postmortem care on people before. I've unfortunately have had to witness people die. I worked in the ER at one point, and we would have people come in and unfortunately,
Yeah.
pass away. And the feeling in the room after people pass away is a very different feeling. The air feels like it's not moving. It feels very still, very calm, which I find comforting, because I
Yeah.
think that they're at peace.
Right.
That's how I take it. I've never had a feeling in a room after somebody died that was uncomfortable. So that always makes me feel good.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. So like I think some people like if they see somebody die, like they might like see like something.
Yeah, I've
But
never
you
seen
never
anything.
seen anything?
Never seen anything, but I've had that feeling
Okay.
of calm and peace, thankfully.
That's cool. Back to like your first story about with the shadow. Did it like zip by like really quickly? Or
Yes,
was
it just went by, and it didn't take me but 10 seconds probably to get down where it was, and it was gone. There was nothing. And I circled, to make sure
Yeah.
nothing.
That's
It
really
was gone.
crazy.
It was gone. And like I said, there was no elevators opening because it was right by the employee elevators too. None of the elevators were opening, so it wasn't like somebody who had gotten on the elevator and went to another floor.
Right.
So it was strange.
Have you had like any other experiences or anybody else that has anything, or is that it from there?
From the hospital?
Yeah, from the hospital.
Nobody else that I can think of has
Okay.
had experiences other than, the ones that I've told you.
Okay. Is there anything else? Any other stories that you want to add?
Now, my husband had an encounter at the Moundsville Penitentiary.
Okay, yeah.
He is a prison guard for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and he was down at Moundsville. They were training,
Okay.
and they were staying down there, but they were all out in the courtyard, I guess you would call it. So that's where they were all staying for the night. But my husband decided to go into the prison. Him and one of his coworkers went into the prison at night, and they were the only ones in there in that area, and there was footsteps.
Really?
There was definite footsteps.
Was it just like following them, or was it
I
like down the hall or something?
yeah, I think, but I don't think they were walking. I think they were in a in a specific area, and the footsteps went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's pretty wild. Do you have any other stories, or is that it? I mean,
There's stories that Bethany College is haunted as well. I've had those stories been told to me as well.
You can share them if you want. You don't have to, but.
Well, Bethany's the oldest college in West Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
so it does have some history. There's the story of I don't know when this happened, but a young man who was a student there had jumped from where the clock tower is, and it's supposed that he roams wherever the clock tower is. I think it's Old Main,
Yeah.
that he haunts that. And there's the story of the bride out in Bethany, but I don't know if it's on campus. I think it might be at an old cemetery where the bride is, but
Okay.
I don't know the story of the bride.
Gotcha. Before I ask you a little bit more about your experiences, I'm gonna flip gears here and I'm gonna read you a different experience that was sent in by Emily and her dad Larry. And so I'll read it to you and we'll discuss our thoughts right after a word from our sponsors. Does your yard make your house look haunted? If so, call us, Grafton Lawn Care. We'll get your place back amongst the living. Welcome back to the LoGhouls podcast. If you are just now tuning in, Natalie just explained her experiences at Weirton Medical Center. And I am about to share another story that I mentioned earlier. It was sent in by Emily and her dad, Larry. And if you want your experience to be heard on the LoGhouls podcast, then head on over to the LoGhouls podcast website. So Emily writes, growing up, my dad Larry experienced a number of paranormal activities. Beginning as early as 4 years old, he has memories of unexplainable things occurring in his childhood home. As long as he could remember, his family referred to it as Piggy. The name Piggy came from a man with the same name who had passed in the house before his family lived there. Although the ghost was referred to as Piggy by the family, his parents were convinced it was really the spirit of his uncle Merle, who had died in a car accident when my dad was a baby. The night Merle had died, my nanny was approached by what she believed to be his spirit. He told her that he would watch over my dad and protect him until he turned 21 and then disappeared. My dad wasn't told about this until he was moved out of the house at 20. Over the years, my dad recalls hearing footsteps going up the stairs, the washer and dryer randomly turning on and shutting back off, and watching a long string that hung from his bedroom light spinning in circles repeatedly, then stopping. One of the stories he shared that stuck out to me was a time in high school he proved to his friend that their house was haunted. One weekend, he was hanging out with some friends and sharing ghost stories with them. One of his friends refused to believe they were true. My dad told him to come stay at his house and see it for himself, since that weekend his parents were out of town and they would be home alone. When they were in my dad's room laying down for bed, his friend nudged him and was shaking. He couldn't speak from fear and pointed to the foot of the bed where 2 cans were levitating. As my dad sat up to look, they dropped to the ground. Needless to say, his friend believed him and never came back. What fascinates my dad the most about all his encounters is the fact that all of the ghost sightings over the years were harmless. His family never once feared Piggy or imagined he would do anything harmful. His family joked about it and it just was something they were used to living with. So, what are some of your thoughts on these experiences?
Well, they didn't feel threatened
Right?
by the ghost. They thought that it was somebody watching over them and protecting them.
Right.
So they didn't need to fear. And it didn't get aggressive,
Right, yeah.
you know.
Kind of just like playing a couple
Right,
tricks
just playing
on
little
them, yeah.
tricks and maybe wanting to be a little playful
Yeah.
and being like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Don't forget me.
Yeah.
You know, I may not have been here in a while, but I'm here.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty cool that like it wasn't, it didn't harm them or anything like that, and it was just like a fun little thing.
Now,
Just-
my brother had a friend in high school who they had a house that was haunted, and they too were not bothered by the ghost. They don't have any idea who it was, but there were things like chairs would move. There was one time that there was a pillow on the couch and an imprint went in the pillow.
Oh, really?
And then it came back up, like somebody had
Yeah.
sat down and then got back up, laid their head on it. people saw figures in the window when they knew that they weren't home, they were on vacation, and they saw a figure up in the attic window, and they knew nobody was there. Keys being moved, but they always welcomed the presence. They were never threatened by it either.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. I like that her story with like the cans levitating.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, and I wonder if the ghosts or spirits, however you want to put it, wanted to be so dramatic because it's
Yeah.
to prove to
Yeah,
this
right.
kid, because that spirit knew that kid didn't
Right.
believe. So it's like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
You think I don't exist? I'll show you. I'm here.
Yeah.
So
No, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so I know we discussed some pretty crazy stories.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go back to your stories.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a few more questions.
all right.
Starting with why you decided to share your stories today.
Well, number one, to help you. I knew that
thank
you needed somebody to talk to you, and I like talking about it, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to interact and share the story and hear other people's interactions.
Right.
Because then it makes you feel like, well, there's other people out there that have had
Yeah.
these interactions, you know.
Yeah, and
with,
so yeah, it makes you feel like you're not like going insane. You're
yeah,
not-
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
As Sheldon says, my mother had me tested. I'm not crazy.
Is the supernatural like something that you've always believed in, or
I've always believed in spirits.
okay?
And angels. I definitely believe that there are angels that are out there. I don't know if I believe that there's anything out there to harm us. I don't
Okay.
know. I like to think it's all just maybe lost souls or
Right.
people trying to find their way
Yeah.
or people trying to help, you know. So,
Yeah, I like that theory there.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, has the supernatural like has it ever like scared you in a way that like you
absolutely, because it's the unknown, and
yeah
sometimes you want to think it's all good,
Mm-hmm.
and I always try to tell myself it's all good.
right
But I could be wrong, and sometimes you doubt yourself.
right yeah
Like, oh, is this for real? Like the first house that we lived in was an old house, and it was a house that was our neighbors. I grew up next to this house, and I remember my brother saying her name was Lucy, and he's like, wonder if Lucy's there. And I said, that's fine. I like Lucy. Lucy won't hurt us. Lucy's welcome, you
Yeah.
know. So Lucy's okay. She'll protect us, you know. So
yeah I mean, is there anything that you like to say to the skeptics listening at home?
Everybody believes what they want to believe, and I always feel what makes me try to understand and feel better about what's going on, the unexplained. I try to come up with maybe my own theory of
Yeah,
what it is. May not be right,
right.
but it might be right. You never know.
No, none of us know.
I try to have faith, and you know, there's good out there. So
Right. So do you not believe that there's any like harmful spirits then?
I think there probably is, but I try to
Yeah.
keep those. I don't know if they can actually do physical harm, though.
Okay.
That's my
Nothing
thing.
that like we see like in the movies.
Right. I don't know if they can throw knives across the room, or I hope to think that they cannot possess somebody, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm far from an expert, and I'm not going to try to be one.
Right.
But I don't think that they can do physical harm. Now, can they scare us? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Scare us to something that we can't explain? Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Not that I can think of, unless if there's something that you want me to
No.
add to that.
You good? Is that all your stories and everything?
Yep, that's it. And
All
if I have
right.
any more, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, and I'm glad you could share your experiences at Weirton Medical.
All right.
And thanks for tuning in at home, folks. And this has been your host Alana with the LoGhouls podcast. where we bring your hauntings to life. Come back for more scares if you dare.